Hi, boys and girls. In Reading Again today, we are talking about retelling a story. We have been talking about retelling with the characters, the setting, the problem, and the solution, just kind of going through those things. We've talked about doing things like somebody, wanted, but so then. We've talked about asking W questions like who, what, where, when, why. Today we are literally just going to be kind of making a list of the big events that happen, and then at the end kind of talking about what the big idea of the story is. And remember, the big idea is kind of maybe what the characters learned in the story and how you could use that in your life, like what you learned from the story also. And it can be kind of the same thing that the characters learned. Remember back to when I showed you the video of Piper, the little bird, and that one was about how the little bird learned to not give up and keep trying and working harder. So in this book, the characters are going to learn something too, so pay attention to that. So I'm going to be reading you kind of a funny book called The Paper Bag Princess. It is written by Robert Munsch, and he is a hilarious author. If you've never read his books before, I suggest that you read them. Sometimes they are they have like some potty humor sometimes, so be careful if you don't like that, but I think they're pretty funny. So here we go. Elizabeth was a beautiful princess. She lived in a castle and had expensive princess clothes. She was going to marry a prince named Ronald. Unfortunately, a dragon smashed her castle, burned all her clothes with his fiery breath, and carried off Prince Ronald. Elizabeth decided to chase the dragon and get Ronald back. She looked everywhere for something to wear, but the only thing she could find not burnt was a paper bag. So she put on the paper bag and followed the dragon. He was easy to follow because he left a trail of burnt forests and horses' bones. Yuck, look at those horses' bones. Finally, Elizabeth came to a cave with a large door that had a huge knocker on it. She took hold of the knocker and banged on the door. The dragon stuck his nose out of the door and said, "Well, a princess. I love to eat princesses, but I have already eaten a whole castle today, and I am a very busy dragon. Come back tomorrow." He slammed the door so fast that Elizabeth almost got her nose caught. Well, that was rather rude of the dragon. Let's see. Elizabeth does not give up, though. Look. Elizabeth grabbed the knocker and banged on the door again. The dragon stuck his nose out of the door and said, "Go away. I love to eat princesses, but I have already eaten a whole castle today. I am a very busy dragon. Come back tomorrow." "Wait!" shouted Elizabeth. "Is it true that you are the smartest and fiercest dragon in the whole world?" "Well, yes," said the dragon. "Is it true," said Elizabeth, "that you can burn up 10 forests with your fiery breath?" "Why, yes," said the dragon. And he took a huge deep breath and breathed out so much fire that he burnt up 50 forests. Whew. "Fantastic," said Elizabeth. And the dragon took another huge breath and breathed out so much fire that he burnt up 100 forests. "Magnificent," said Elizabeth, and the dragon took another huge breath. But this time, nothing came out. The dragon didn't even have enough fire to cook a meatball. Not even a meatball. Elizabeth said, "Dragon, is it true that you can fly around the world in just 10 seconds?" "Why, yes," said the dragon, and he jumped up and flew all around the world in just 10 seconds. He was very tired when he got back. But Elizabeth shouted, "Fantastic! Do it again." So the dragon jumped up and flew around the whole world in just 20 seconds. When he got back, he was too tired to talk, and he lay down and went straight to sleep. Elizabeth whispered very softly, "Hey, dragon." The dragon didn't move at all. She lifted up the dragon's ear and put her head right inside, and she shouted as loud as she could, "Hey, dragon!" The dragon was so tired, he didn't even move. Elizabeth walked right over to the dragon and she walked right over the dragon and opened the door to the cave. There was Princess Ronald, and he looked at her and said, "Elizabeth, you are a mess. You smell like ashes, and your hair is all tangled, and you're wearing a dirty old paper bag. Come back when you're dressed like a real princess." "Ronald," said Elizabeth, "your clothes are really pretty, and your hair is very neat, and you look like a real prince, but you are a bum." They didn't get married after all. The end. Isn't that a silly story? So here's the paper, oof, it looks like a lot, that you're going to be filling out today with different events. So Mrs. Kimmel already filled it in for this one with purple. So let me tell you a mistake that I kind of made. I started going and I didn't touch and tell first, and I kind of ran out of space. And I wished that I would have squished two of the top events together and left more room at the bottom. So don't make the same mistake as me. So let's see, look what I did. So I said event 1. Remember, I'm retelling the story, so I'm thinking about what happened in order. First, the princess was going to marry Ronald. Next, a dragon burnt all her clothes and took Ronald. See, I'm starting to think, like after I got done, that I could have squished those two together. I could have said that the princess was going to marry Ronald, but a dragon took him and burnt all her clothes. Event 3, she put on a paper sack and went after the dragon. Event 4, she tricked him, I probably should have said the dragon. She tricked the dragon into blowing out all of his fire and getting really tired. Event 5, she tried to save Ronald, but he didn't like her dirty clothes, and so they didn't get married. Now, the last part on this paper says, what is the big idea? That means, what is the author trying to teach you? So what did Ronald learn? Did he learn anything? Maybe. He might have learned that he should have been nicer to somebody that was rescuing him. And I think the princess learned that you can kind of learn who people really are inside. Like she learned that the prince was really not a good person on the inside because he should have been grateful for getting saved, but he wasn't. He cared more about what she looked like, right? And so that's not what's really important. So you could think the message was a lot of things. It could be something like, don't judge people by how they look, right? Because he was judging her based on how she looked. It could be more about accepting help, right? And that's the way I kind of took it. I said, be grateful for any help you get, okay? So any lesson that you could maybe learn from your book is what you're gonna write there. Okay, so you're gonna be listening to a book and filling out your sequence chart as best you can. And like I said, your events you might push two together in a different way than somebody else, but that's okay. What I'm really looking for is, are you including all of the important events and not skipping some, okay? But it's also like you don't need to include every single little thing. Like if you noticed, I skipped the part about knocking on the dragon's door and him telling her to go away because I didn't feel like that was the most important part of the story, okay? So you kind of have to decide, is this an important event or not important, and you have to pick out the most important, the ones that change the story, right? So like my first event, if she wasn't going to marry Princess Ronald, the story would have never happened because she wouldn't have gone after him. If the dragon hadn't taken him and burnt all her clothes, it wouldn't have happened. I needed to include that her clothes got burnt because in the end that mattered, because that's why Princess Ronald didn't want to marry her, remember? It was important that she put on a paper sack, partly because that's the title of the book, and also because that's another reason why Princess Ronald didn't want to marry her. It's important that she tricked the dragon, because if she had not tricked the dragon, he wouldn't have fallen asleep and she wouldn't have been able to go get Ronald. It is also important that she tried to save Ronald, and it is super important at the end that of what he said and what she did because of what he said. So like I said, the part about opening the door wasn't important, so I skipped it, and that's really hard to do. So good luck telling me the events in your story.